Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and tonight we are joined by a special guest, Amy Jenkins, and she is the owner of a local private practice in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Strive to Thrive, and that's Strive, the number 2, Strive, which I think is just beautiful and clever.
Thank you.
How are you doing this evening, Amy?
I'm good, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing well, So we'll kind of just ease into the conversation and let them get to know you a little bit here. But you are a licensed professional counselor, and we were kind of chatting about that. I'm curious, just for those listening, what got you in the field and pulled you in the direction of being a helping professional?
Okay, do you want the long version
Sure.
or the short version?
Yeah.
So the long version, it's a bit hang tight. So many moons ago, I've been remarried now for 7 years, I believe. We're going into our 8th. So well before then, I was in a very destructive relationship for many years, part of my early adulthood, and I couldn't seem to get out of that. Eventually, I'll get to how I got to counseling, but I was in this marriage, and I couldn't get out of it. It was struggling. There was a lot of addiction, all sorts of stuff. It was really a mess. And one day I said to somebody, I really need a marriage counselor. And they said, we've got the guy for you. And I said, okay. Life had been in the pits. I had 2 little kids, like the whole 9 yards. And so I go and I start seeing this marriage counselor. Come to find out, my then husband, it was just a whole mess. Shortly after that, he left and refused to come home. I continued to work with this marriage counselor, and he saved my life. Seeing this guy, I was able to get out of that. I was able to finish my undergrad work, and I was so young. I had 2 small kids. I had dropped out of high school. And so to go to school and finish like my undergrad work was a huge accomplishment. Yeah. And just as I was finishing my undergrad work, I met my husband, or my now husband, and you know, the rest is history. But it was the work that I did there. I was in therapy with him for 2 years straight. I was there at least every week. Every once in a while, it was twice a week. But he really helped me to get out of a very abusive situation and to thrive. And that was something that he and I had talked about so much, about learning not just to survive, but learning to thrive. And I mean, that's how I got here, was just doing that hard work. And my dad will say that I approached him about going back to grad school, and I will say that that my dad approached me. Either which way, I went back to grad school, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Here I am.
Here we are. Now you're on a podcast talking about your expertise. And what I would add too is, like, so you guys probably see her pointing over here, but it's just such a testament, because right when you guys came in, so Amy's husband's sitting over here in the corner, Clay, and right when you guys came in, it was just like, what a healthy looking couple, you know, what a couple of nice people. You've been so respectful, and just what a testament to the growth of therapy, right? And when we, you know, my therapist put it like this to me the other week, of like, when we start setting healthier criteria for the relationships we invite into our lives, and it's just like, it's felt, you know? Yeah. And like, I'm just now getting to know you, and I can already tell just by interacting with the 2 of you, it's like, clearly you guys are just a fit and get along, and they're fun to talk to, and just, I don't know, it's encouraging, you know? It's good to see. It
is encouraging. We work really hard to make this, I mean, at times it's been like the world has been against us, or, you know, and so we're very blessed. To be holding strong together with each other.
You know, and it's a blessing too, because I was talking with some friends who were like, oh, we're going to watch tonight, and they're in some similar spots, and they talk about relationship stuff, and even some clients, and I didn't really even know as you were checking in, because I know the bare bones of your bio and just some of the information, but right off the bat, I'm like, man, I can think of 2 or 3 people right off the bat who are going to benefit from hearing your experience tonight. So
Oh, good.
it's just a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying when we were just kind of getting to know each other here and chatting before the show that you work with a lot of couples.
I do.
And, just kind of, if you could put some words to some of the ways in which you really like working with couples and some of the ways in which there's challenges, and whichever direction you'd like to go, and then we can navigate it from there.
Okay. Couples get like a really bad rap.
Yeah.
Like I was in a networking group meeting today, and I was like, I see couples, the dreaded couples. I mean, they get a really bad rap. I mean, but to be fair, sometimes you can only do so many couple sessions a week before you're really exhausted, because there's a sense of like urgency or dire straits by the time they get into the counseling room. Most of the time, like they're at their wits' end, and so they bring some of that desperation, like, please, like, we've got to figure this out, or he or she's driving me freaking crazy, you know. And that pressure can be transferred, because I want to see them succeed. Right. I love it. The Gamas that own a mending clinic there in Arlington, but Jorge will always say, like, my goal is to get you to fire me. Yeah. Like, that's the goal. We want you to go out into the world. Like, I want to see you call me or text me and go, we're doing great. We don't need to come in. Like, this has been wonderful. So that's the best part.
I think that's
when you hear that, when you get that feedback, I'm like, yes.
I think it's also the mark of a healthy therapist too, of like, I'm trying to work myself out of a job, right? I'm not just trying to take your resources. I want you to do better.
Yes.
And that also speaks to, like, as you were coming into the field, working with a therapist that helped you out of a situation.
Yeah.
And here you are helping people navigate in them. But I'm sure as we come across those where the solution is probably to get out, and it's tough. It's a tough balance.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really is tough whenever people are just up against like a no-win situation, I mean, those do happen. Most of the time those happen, and I won't hear much about it. I'll just know, like, later on down the line, like, they've decided to end their marriage. Most of the time I don't couple counsels to divorce. I really try to work with them to find some form of reconciliation. But at some point in time, there does become an end to marriage counseling. Like, if we can't find reconciliation, which generally is because we can't seem to find repentance and a turning away from whatever is diminishing or damaging the relationship. And I will say, you probably need to work on some individual stuff at that point.
Yeah. Could you put that? I think it's such a wonderful point, and you and I understand these concepts, but could you put a few more words to just kind of, and it doesn't need to be anything advanced, but just a few more words to, like, when you would recommend someone to individual therapy out of a couple's dynamic?
Probably most of the time it's whenever, let's say, if there's been some sort of infidelity, and there's not ownership taken for the infidelity. I mean, we're going to hit a roadblock, because until you can say, yeah, I did that and it hurt you and I'm very sorry and I'm going to work to not do it again, we can't get anywhere. Yeah. Like.
And isn't it, maybe I've read too many books over the years, but isn't it Esther Perel who talks about, like, if there can be some accountability in the infidelity, that there's a path forward?
It sure could be Esther Perel. I haven't read a lot of her books. I know she's very popular.
Well, yeah, she's popular, but she's not in the room. So I'm more curious about what would be your perspective on that? Like, is there a path forward? Do you think that that's something that could be...
If there's not repentance, no, I don't think there is a path forward.
That's the line, is accountability.
There has to be. You have to be able to take ownership. Yeah. And even sometimes, like, in working with couples, they'll start calling, the no-name topic, or, that bad day, or, they kind of, and I'm like, we need to be able to call a spade, 10 years from now, you can call it that bad day. But right now, like, this is super fresh, and we're going to have to call it the day you found out he or she was having an affair.
Yeah.
Type of deal.
Yeah. It's kind of like in 12-step recovery when someone's going to do like their 4th and 5th step.
Yeah.
It's like you have to be able to chew, swallow, and digest your character defects.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, they're going to come back and bite you later.
Yeah. Gotta take the ownership.
Yeah. What about substance use in a relationship as they're approaching counseling and maybe the partner is having a hard time staying sober? What's your perspective just as a clinician on that one?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm trying to think back. I haven't had anybody recently that I'm like, oh, let me draw off that experience of a spouse like struggling to stay sober.
Yeah, because there's a spectrum, right? There's the same accountability factor of like those who are like seeking recovery, and then there's those who don't. And I guess maybe just more from the clinical perspective, where would you kind of like coach or guide your clients, around addictions in the relationship? Should they stay? Should they leave? Should they work on it? Should there be?
As long as there's no like physical harm. Right? As long as there's no physical harm, I encourage people to stay. But if we're getting into, or emotional, if like we're getting into like being torn down and torn apart and all that kind of stuff, then I tell everybody like you need to seek safety.
Yeah.
And maybe you can work on it from a distance. But if you can't like sit down on a couch and feel comfortable like that you're not going to be ripped to shreds, like
yeah.
You can't stay in that home. So even if you're like, if somebody like falls off the wagon or is, continuing to struggle, I say like, try to hang in there. But sometimes that you do have to like make that decision to get out of there. And then from a distance, evaluate whether or not the relationship can be salvaged. My hope is that it can be.
Sure.
That cooler heads can prevail, that clearer heads can prevail,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that the relationship can be salvaged, but sometimes we need a little distance from that. And we need an eye-opening experience, something that says, hey, I've got something to lose. Sometimes, for either party, not just the person that's, abusing drugs or alcohol, but even for the spouse, to really get that perspective of like, it's not just the heat of the moment and I like got to get out of here type
Sure.
of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the sentiment too, is like it's the last effort, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've tried everything else, and you would have stayed if things would have gotten better.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of respect for that in the realms of accountability, because there's honesty in that. When you've worked it through and you can look and say like I tried everything, and I can't look and say like I didn't take accountability for my part.
Yeah. But I think something that's really a struggle, in particular in working with couples, is the fact that, and I'm trying to think where I read it or heard it, and it's been 100 years ago, but it was like by the time the couples like finally come into couples counseling, like they're 6 or 7 years into the pits.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's like a really hard, deep valley to dig yourself out of, right? And a lot of times I talk with couples about like because I do a lot of the Gottman trainings.
Yeah.
And so they talk about like the perspective of the relationship, that sentiment, and it's negative or it's positive. Well, if you think like you've been in the drudges of hell, like in marital hell for 7 years, your perspective is like pretty negative. Like
pretty skewed.
They're taking the trash out and that's all wrong, I mean, like it's going to take a lot to like start to work on to like seeing the positives. But I mean, most couples come in, not all, but most come in and they've been trying like everything for as long as they could,
I saw a Gottman meme today on Instagram, and it's
Oh.
just a picture of a guy staring, and it was a random couple enjoying their life, and then the Gottman Institute, you're not going to make it.
I know. It's like crazy. Like he says he can pinpoint down to like 90-something% accuracy if a couple's going to make it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how many people are signing up to go to the Love Lab. Like,
right. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I'll pass. I'll figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about this too, but the intersection in your clinical experience, in your bio, there's a lot of spirituality and faith in there. And it comes across both when I was checking out your website, but reading your bio. And what would you say to, maybe someone, because we can go in a lot of different directions here, but someone who has been on the fence about therapy, leans heavily on their religion, but is open to the experience, maybe grew up during a time where they were told, like, we don't lean on outside professionals, we turn to God. What would you say to people like that?
Well, I would say to everybody that you need to be very discerning whenever you're picking a therapist. And particularly whenever we think about like trying to find, I'm a Christian, so when trying to find a Christian therapist, you need to be very discerning, right? Because we're called, to find good counsel and provide good counsel. And not all counsel is good counsel.
That's the truth. Yeah.
So be very discerning whenever you're going that route, and especially if like you've kind of got like some of that baggage that says we don't talk to people, like do your digging, ask some questions. I tell people, like, when they're looking for a therapist, I'm like, I find looking for a therapist is like buying shoes. This is really antiquated, like this for all the tech gurus out there. I'm like, you can walk by and see a pair of shoes in like a window and you go, oh, those look great, I've got to get those. Nobody window shops anymore, but and you go in and like you try them on and you're like, please get these things off my feet, these are terrible, these are horrible, I don't want them, they looked great in the window but they're trash, go burn them, type of deal. Like they're horrible. Or you can go in and be like, oh my gosh, what other colors do these come in, like these are great. That's kind of what it is, like finding a therapist. Like you need to find somebody that's like a good fit with you, and and particularly when we start talking about like spirituality or your religious, your moral beliefs, you need to find somebody where you guys hold like-minded beliefs and values.
It's interesting, right? Because I pick no bones. Like, I'm a Christian and I believe in God, but I have a lot of clients on my caseload, and this point that you were making, I thought it's so interesting, because when I have, say, like a Christian client come in, they're very discerning about, like, are we in a similar place of morals and values, whereas like more of my atheist type or nihilistic type clients, or those who don't believe in anything, they're much more open to me just being a Christian and they believe something else. And I think that's the nature of relativism anyway. It's like, when you don't really believe in a God, everything's relative anyway, so then they kind of qualify the discernment based on something else, probably my humor, but but it's interesting, because I was taught a long time ago on this point you were making of discernment, especially when it comes to relationships or finding a provider. It's not between what's good and what's bad as much as it's what's good but what's better for you.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's not always the case, but it's an interesting point, right? And I think it's the reason I tend to like it is because that's a recovery principle. It's not always going to work, right, with finding a therapist. I think your example is primarily the way people shop for a therapist, right, that they're going to relate to. And and maybe this is just the fact that I work with a lot of 12-steppers that's showing right now, because I saw some hesitation on that, and I'm just ultra curious what came up and what.
Well, it probably was nothing. It's probably just me overthinking things or whatever. Because I just I don't want to get lost in like the your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth, because I think the truth is the truth, and I may have my opinion or my thoughts or my understanding, you know what I mean? So kind of whenever I think about that, like looking at like the religious beliefs of somebody, like I'm looking for somebody who believes in the truth. Well, and not necessarily like their interpretation, of their truth that day.
It's Well, I think it's important that you state that too, because for the people who they don't believe in that, they're not going to come to you, right? But there are a ton of people that need you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I have quite a few clients that probably that I would say probably aren't believers. And that's like not part of our therapy conversations or experiences, or even if I say something that may be remotely kind of like religious,
Sure.
I guess, they may not even truly like get that that's what I'm saying, you know?
Well, I think spiritually, at the end of the day, like with especially like religion and ultimate truths, it's like there is a reality in the world and there's wisdom in it, you know? And just from the standpoint, like I've had a few conversations on this podcast too, is like societies are built on striving towards something better, you know, like a logos, that's something we can look off in the distance, and it can't be changing all around.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the reality, especially
it's like a game of whack-a-mole or
something.
something.
and the game of whack-a-mole only exists up here because the reality is it's not changing.
Yeah.
You know, for us individually.
No, it's not. No. Bring on the rapture. Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of the journey started. I liked the name of the school, but I'd never heard of it. The Moody Bible College.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. I've never heard of this school.
So I got to Moody. It was really random. I was reading this book, and she has since remarried, but her name was Courtney Joseph Smith, but she is remarried. And I was reading this book, and she was talking about her experience going to Moody Bible. And I was like, oh, that sounds really awesome. And she was just talking about like the thriving relationship that she developed with the Lord while she was there. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a whirl, you know? And so I applied. And I got in on academic probation because, of course, like part of like that wild, crazy, terrible relationship I was in a good chunk of my early 20s. I had flunked out of like community college with like some like 4 zeros or something like that. So those things do like come back and bite you in the rear end.
Sure.
But I was, I got accepted. I was on academic probation and started my journey there at Moody Bible. It was the best, the best. It was challenging. During that time, I went through a divorce, and you know, I was dealing with all that. You know, being in a Christian college, and here I was like studying the ministry, and like, what am I gonna do now? Like, I'm a divorced lady. You know, don't look over at me. You know, don't kick me out. Like, it was this whole thing. But I mean, it was absolutely wonderful, and it was such a celebration for our family to go. Like my 2 children and my parents, my dad and stepmom, we all loaded up and went to Chicago for the big graduation there in Moody Chapel, which if you ever get to see it, it's like gorgeous.
Very cool.
But we got to do all that. I mean, that was a huge deal because, again, like I was a high school dropout. I had a baby in the middle of high school, so we didn't have a lot of those things to celebrate. So to be able to like walk through that as a family and to go up there was phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's located in Chicago? It's
located in Chicago, yeah. So my student advisor, Jan, she told me, when you come up here, it's not like it is down there. And she was like, so don't talk.
Really?
She was like, because they're going to know that you're not from here, so don't say anything. Gotcha. And she was like, and just look down, keep walking. Because I would like talk and be like, hey, how are you? And she was like, don't say anything. They'll know you're a foreigner. Like, don't do it. Can't hide the Texas accent. So, yeah. Just
I remember
happen.
When I was moving out here from California, everyone's like, they're going to smell your Californian from a mile away.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like everybody has just been delightful and friendly, and I'm sure you found that too when you went. It's like once you find your community, all the stuff people are worried about, it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, kind of melts away, and then you can kind of joke with each other about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I joke all the time about, we were before the show, just California's a wild place.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. I haven't gotten to go there yet, but that's what I hear.
Yeah. You'll have to keep me posted after you guys go visit your son.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I told you. Tried to warn you.
I know. He sent us like an Instagram, like one of the reels or whatever, and he was like, that's my CVS. And it's some guy like chasing some people around in the CVS, like with a golf club, just like muttering who knows what. Something. And he was like, that's the CVS I go to. And I'm like, oh my gosh. A mom's heart is like, go to a different CVS.
Right.
What can I Amazon you?
Yeah.
Like stay indoors, know.
Do you, speaking of being a mother and a therapist, do you find that a lot of moms seek you out because you have that shared experience, or does, I'm sure, I know you've worked with mothers, but do you
I've
find...
worked with a ton of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm quite certain at times, like, it's a bonding experience because we've both either are raising or have raised children, because we're kind of in this awkward season of having adult children and almost adult children. So, yeah.
So, it's kind of, the reason I ask that is I'm curious with the therapists I bring on, do you find that with the phases and the stages you've been in and the years you've been practicing, that as you grow and change, that it's the things that you've worked on that now the clients coming to find you are looking to work on? Have you ever experienced that?
Like the things that we've gone through, like as a
like
family?
we've like healed and worked on, like as clinicians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you've experienced that too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And
it's interesting, isn't it?
It's wild. Like, sometimes I sit in sessions and I go, wow, I was probably there before.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that I was given the opportunity to be able to go through and do some of that healing work. Yeah. It's is it odd or is it God? Yeah.
It's just like, wow, I've been exactly there, and thank goodness this is where we've come to so that we can see those things.
Yeah, I mean, and like I try not to, and I'll tell clients, like, I don't want to make this about me, but I do want to share with you, like, I've been here or somewhere really, really similar, and I know, like, this blows right now. It really stinks right now. It is going to get better. Yeah. Like, walking with ladies as, or even men as they're going through divorce, and it's like that heavy cloud, that's, and or at least that's the way it was, and they're like, this just sucks. Like, I don't want to be here, type deal. And I'm like, I know, and I will share with them, like, I get it. Like, I've been there where you were like, is the cloud gonna go? Is it always going to be up here? Like, this is really heavy. Like, I'm kind of tired of it. And, I got the advice from a wonderful lady. I was in a step study as part of Celebrate Recovery. And she said, one day you're just going to wake up and that cloud is going to be gone. And I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. I bet, And it was like one day, like, I woke up and I was like, the cloud is gone, had it been gone for 2 or 3 days, it sure could have been. But I mean, I can still remember the moment whenever I was sitting there like, okay, Yeah,
it's almost like, there's a lot of different ways, but it's almost like the obsession lifts of like thinking about it.
Oh, yeah.
For me, when you were sharing on that, it's like all the alcoholics in my life that I used to worry about constantly and want to help fix and save. Yeah. And then with recovery, it was really around step 3 of like made a decision to turn my will and life over to God.
Yeah.
That the obsession started to lift. I was like, oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a relief.
Yeah. I wonder where I was in my step study whenever the cloud lifted,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. I'd have to go back and look at my books and see if I wrote anything down there. Yeah. But that was something I did going through the divorce. My divorce was I went through like divorce care and did a step study as part of Celebrate Recovery. We did that as a family, and that was on top of therapy. That was truly healing. I love all that stuff. I think it's great. Celebrate
Recovery is a great program. You know, it's one that I recommend. Like if someone comes in and they're just so staunchly against 12 steps, it's like, well, let's check out Celebrate Recovery. You know, because they may have some different terminology that, you know, that suits you, or a different approach that suits you. It's tricky, you know, because like when someone comes in and they don't like the word God, it's like, other than maybe smart recovery, it's like, I'm not really sure I can point you anywhere, brother, because like the philosophical principle is going to be something bigger than you, my friend. You know? Like you can't escape it. You've
got to get outside of yourself.
You're the problem.
I know, and it makes me think of, like, I was just talking with a friend because she was saying something about like self-care. You know, we're so big about self-care, you know, and I said, why don't you stop trying to self-care? And I was like, why don't you get out of yourself and go do something and serve somebody else and see if that makes you feel better? Because we are so like in recovery and in life and just in general, like sometimes you've got to get outside of yourself.
We run the risk of being selfish, self-seeking, and self-righteous, you know, when it's all here all the time.
Absolutely.
You know? And self-care, and I'm sure you've seen this too, and maybe this would be a tangent in the discussion, but like society this day is all about like the self-care, but it's oddly egotistical and selfish sometimes, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. It really is. And then people are like, well, I don't feel any better, you know? And I'm like, because you're just sitting in your own stuff, swirling and thinking about yourself. I mean, we were really called to like get out of ourselves.
That's
get out of our own way and to live, you know, live for that higher power, live for God, move into that calling and serve people, serve the community, you know, and do things like that. And that's not involved, you know, self-care, you know. All the time. I mean, not that we need to neglect ourselves either.
Right.
Like,
it's a balance.
That it shouldn't be your sole focus.
No, and certainly not the way Instagram tells you to do it. That for those listening, that would be the wrong path. Even if you're watching this on Instagram, go still talk to your therapist. But it's, you know, it's the point you're making is like, I think people are shocked when they look in all different directions for literature, and the point you just made is the ultimate point they're going to find, is that you can read secular documents of philosophy and they're going to tell you eventually to seek God and to be of service to your fellow. It's everywhere. We were just
we were wired and created that way from the very beginning. I mean, and that's what I tell people, like if we weren't wired and created for community, we wouldn't go seek out friendships. We wouldn't go seek out relationships, you know, romantic relationships. We wouldn't have children if we were just meant to just sit here by ourselves, you know?
It's like you wouldn't be talking to me as a therapist if you weren't seeking a human being to connect with.
Right. I mean, it's in there. It's in our DNA. It's the way the Lord made us. But with that, he made us to go directly to him. He wanted to, that being the ultimate counsel to get.
You know, it's like how you were saying, you lose yourself in that when you're of service to people, and there's a real sense of I've found just personally, like knowing my higher power in those moments. Like for me, I pick no bones. It's God, it's Jesus, you know, it's like I know my higher power in those moments of being of service without expecting it, just being of service to somebody more than I ever did in my life prior. You know, I recommend it for all of my clients is find somewhere where you can get lost in being of service to your fellows if you're ever lost in other ways, so that you can then balance a life of service and ride off into the sunset relatively peaceful. It sounds like we're on the same page on that one.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Have you found, maybe not in this area, but I know in California there was a lot of pushback from certain clinicians on even spirituality around 12 steps in clinical settings. And I like to use, like when I talk with someone that I know is open to the spiritual side of like normalizing it, you know, in our clinical practices. And I'm curious what you would add to just the conversation of normalizing, bringing your spiritual beliefs into the work that you do, and why even it's like, you know, a beneficial part of clinical practice when we're in touch with it.
Well, I mean, things that I try to do, like even that clients may not know about, is, you know, I have like a little devotional on my desk, or, you know, not that I'm always great, I don't want to be zapped by lightning out of this chair. Like, I pray over the office every day, because I don't. But I sure do try to pray over the office and the time and the people that are coming through those doors and whatever's going to come out of my mouth and all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, and working with clients, you know, I don't necessarily open sessions up in prayer or anything. I kind of let that be more client driven. I have some clients, like they'll like flip through their Bibles and, you know, stuff like that. And I let more of that be client driven. I know that people that are really, really, you know, comfortable and like, that's part of the reason they've sought out counseling with me. And for other folks, I mean, they're getting prayed over whether they like it or not. Like there's stuff that's coming through the office, you know, whenever I have breaks, like most of the time I'm going to be watching like some sort of podcast or, you know, something to do with, you know, spirituality or faith, or, you know, kind of like where I land with morals and just kind of moving through life like that way. So yeah, it shows up.
Certainly. Yeah.
It shows up. And I tell people, because like I'm the world's worst, there's a huge joke in my house. Like, of course I raised a sailor. Our son is a Navy sailor. And of course I did, because I cuss like one. So he would have to go. You know, and like I've always told my husband, you know, like that's an area where the Lord is still really working on my heart. And I tell clients, like, the Lord is still really working on my heart. And it's really, like, it's a sinful part of it's just a lot that's wrapped up there, you know? And so I will joke with clients about that. Like, I'm not offended if you say those words, but I'm still trying to work it out in my heart over here, you know? Like,
it's a losing battle for me.
It's really a challenge, you know, and especially like in the counseling world. My counselor used to say, I'm going to use some clinical language here, you know? I mean, it's really a challenge. Like, we're in some, like, saltier parts of the world when people are coming in, and so we hear a lot, and it just kind of sticks as well. That doesn't make it right either, but I mean, it's a challenge.
Yeah, you know, one of my recovery groups is a bunch of, you know, older ladies and such, and we meet in a church basement, and I love the shock factor sometimes of when I drop an F-bomb, and I shouldn't. They're listening probably because I watched your show, and I shouldn't, but I do it, and it's funny, and I'll stop eventually, ladies, I promise. But it's
You promise it. Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Working on it. Yeah. Yeah. All those little battles, you know, of moving closer. You know, I always, it's kind of like my sponsor used to tell me, I'm never going to be a saint because I'm never going to stop saying the F word.
It's going to hold you back there. Yeah.
All the reasons we won't walk on water, but that's okay.
I'm hopeful that eventually it'll not be a part of my life.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I can tell when I've like prayed more about it, you know, that I will have more of intentionality in my speaking rather than just like kind of off the cuff stuff. But it's very hard.
Yeah, I think there's a meditative quality to that too, right? With prayer, you know, the more you invite in the way you want to be, you know, not only is your higher power going to help you with that, but you're also taking the indicated steps to make yourself aware.
Yeah.
All the little scientific ways that the higher power stuff works too. It's observable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Holy Spirit working in you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so let's use a few. Let me just check. Perfect. Let's use a few minutes here. If somebody was unaware of therapy, which is rare these days, but it still happens, and especially the younger crowds. Like, I wasn't privy and aware of therapy until pretty much until I was in my master's program. Like, I remember asking in the interview, is that where you sit down and talk to people about their feelings? Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody didn't know about therapy and just randomly stumbled across this, how would you describe it and entice them through attraction to talk to a therapist? It's off the wall, but how would you go about it?
How would I describe it?
Like, if you were selling therapy, what would that look like?
Oh my gosh, like a new car.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I have no idea how I would sell it to somebody. Yeah. That's a really wild question. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, let's phrase it like this. What can they hope for from therapy? Just from your own experience, doesn't need to be anything.
What can they hope for?
Yeah.
That if they put in the work, if they're really serious about it, that they can see fruit from their time in therapy. They can see change come about. Now, if that change meets their expectations, that I cannot guarantee of the therapy experience. But I mean, if you're there and you're listening and you're kind of taking in, and then once you leave the therapy room, you start to like apply some of that, or you walk with some of that realization, you should start to notice, I mean, so much of what like I talked with people last week was like, well, just notice that, or just say no to that, or something. Like, if you start to implement that, you're going to notice changes. But if you just show up, every week for a 50-minute session, and then you leave there, you get your coffee and your Chick-fil-A, and like you move along until the next week, and you're not going to get anything from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm not a miracle worker.
Touché.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what my old therapist, Mike, he used to say, like, did they give you a crystal ball? Yeah. No, they didn't.
I wish. That'd be nice.
Right?
Yeah. They tossed me an 8-ball and said odds are good.
Yeah. Like, I don't have that. Like, I'm not a miracle worker. Like, I'm a mere mortal here. So, I'm just offering to be able to sit with you and offer hopefully a different perspective, or maybe hope for a different perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that that's your answer, and here's why. When I was looking for therapists to interview, I was going through the bios, and I said, hey, here's someone who is just real, approachable, like it was easy to read your bio, and then you got back right away. It was easy to chat with you. I was like, this is just a normal person.
Yeah.
I think that's the best sales pitch in this field that there could possibly be.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's so kind. I tell folks, like, I don't use a lot of like clinical jargon and all that kind of crap. Essentially, like, the way I talk and the way I move, like, this is it. Like, you're going to get all this. I'm going to do what I can to refrain from like totally like jaw dropping or like bawling, but I hear hard stuff. I tell clients, like, we'll cry in here. I'm not going to like fall apart, but there'll probably be times like I'll, have to wipe a tear or something because I hear a lot of hard things. But I also tell clients, like, when there's something freaking funny happening, let's laugh.
Yeah.
Like, the day is long enough and hard enough. Like, we're gonna laugh whenever it's laughable too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to front load clients on that. Like, what's interesting is with that question, and I'll always try to work one or two in, because this is, as you get to know me and you'll be back on the show at some point, I'll invite you back. It's like, I appreciate shock value in life. So I always try to work in one or two questions where it's going to be like, but as we just navigated it, you gave the sales pitch that was you, and isn't that's therapy in a nutshell. It's like, we're just humans. We've happened to have read the books that maybe you're highly interested in growing in as you're looking for therapy, and we have the expertise. But just because we have it doesn't mean I'm not going to be human with you.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it just flows out. We're not salespeople, but we attract, I think, that part of human nature.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
that was very
absolutely.
kind. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hey, it's when it's true, it's easy to say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Strive to Thrive. Where can people find it? Let's take a minute here just so you can plug where people can find your information if they were interested or if they're listening later. And
okay. So I do have a website. So it is s2tcounseling.com. And my telephone number is 682-200-9940. And so clients can call or text that number to try to set up an appointment if they'd like, and go on the website as well and read my bio and set up an appointment all through there. Yay, technology.
Yeah,
like
it's nice. I was navigating your website for those. We'll put it in the descriptions, whether you're listening on a podcast. If you go in the description or if you're on YouTube, you'll see it at the bottom. We'll have your website and the phone number that you provided. The website's very easy to navigate.
Yeah. It's pretty easy breezy.
Yeah, straight up. You want therapy? Here it is. Click it. Yeah.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah. Because sometimes I don't know if you've had this experience, but like even referring to people, you'll navigate their websites. It's like, where's your contact information?
Yeah, and I did have like a really fancy website, and I went down to just like a really simple, easy breezy one. So it just is what it is.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions for you. These I ask to every guest at the end of the show. I'm not going to do the Bigfoot question.
I know. I'm
You've been waiting
totally waiting for the freaking Bigfoot question. And I was going to be like, I don't know squat about Bigfoot.
Well, okay. Now that we're on the topic, Clay had a good point. Everybody has an opinion about Bigfoot. What's yours?
I mean, I literally know squat about Bigfoot. Apparently, I'm going to have to listen to Blurry Creatures now, so I can learn about Bigfoot.
Yeah. Clay, I tried, man. I think that's what we're getting from her tonight on Bigfoot.
I know. Yeah.
If you had a mental health amusement park and you got to choose the rides, what would be the first ride that was built and why?
Oh, I hate amusement parks. I wouldn't have an amusement.
Just a perpetual line?
I mean, like, they're hot and expensive, and I don't like heights. So, I mean, whatever I did would definitely be 2 feet on the ground type of stuff.
Yeah, you just build the exit?
Yeah, like, get out. Get out. Yeah. Like, take a water and go. It's my parting gift.
There you go.
Yeah. I can't even tell you, like, the last time I went to an amusement park, I think I was like 14 years old at Six Flags. So it's been a while.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
The Six Flags I hear in California is the one in Southern California is better than the one here, but I don't know. I can't back that up because I still have to go to the one here.
Oh, good luck. God bless you.
But it's so hot these days. I'm not doing a summer trip.
No way.
So I couldn't get you with that one. Let's do this. What is your favorite childhood cartoon?
Oh, childhood cartoons for the lady who didn't really watch a lot of cartoons. Oh my gosh. Well, one that my husband and I talked about, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. They had like all the movies and stuff like. I know, like I'm a girl, but I used to love that show. Like it was so awesome.
The group of them, or did you have a favorite color of the Ninja Turtles?
No, I think I liked them all.
So if they came to you for group therapy, how would they benefit from seeing you in group therapy?
Oh gosh, could you just tell them to stop it and go home and get along?
To stop fighting crime?
No.
If they stop fighting crime, who's going to protect the sewers?
No, just get along and go home. I mean, what would bring them to group therapy?
Maybe they're having problems with Splinter, their dad. You know, constantly forcing them to fight crime.
Oh, gosh.
Am I reading too much into that?
You may. Yeah.
Overanalyzing the Ninja Turtles?
Maybe. Splinter did the best he could with what he had in those moments. You know what I mean? The turtle's going to just have to get over it a little bit.
Yeah, so you coach them through. Parents have their limitations. And they're imperfect. Fair enough. And you're sure no other comments on Bigfoot? Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Shoot, a monkey.
Have to appease the crowd.
Oh yeah, the crowd. Yeah, I'm gonna hear about it all the way home.
Good.
Yeah, about Bigfoot. I know he was trying to tell me they're like cryptics or something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
There's
he's
a
like,
lot of
oh,
them.
she misspoke the word or something. I'm sure. Yeah, what is it? Cryptid.
Yeah, cryptids.
See, told you.
Yeah.
I don't know squat.
You'll be an expert in no time. But on a
Apparently.
serious note,
Yeah.
any last words for those who have enjoyed what you had to share and just kind of what you would sign off with tonight?
What I would sign off
Yeah,
with.
just last words that you want to share, if anything at all.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I really don't know of any last parting words, but thank you for letting me be here, and I hope everybody enjoyed that got to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure they did, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy Jenkins, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Catch Breaking the Cycle every Friday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We break the cycle together. We love you.